to Cody Talks NFL, presented by Blitzalytics.com. And here's your host, Cody Manning.
And welcome into the Monday edition of Cody Talks NFL. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I did. Hope you guys enjoyed all that great football yesterday. We had some really great, exciting games. Today's episode is going to be a little different. Like I said 4 weeks ago when I did like the first quarter awards or look at where everybody stands, I guess. I was going to do that after every 4 weeks. We are officially at the midway point of the season, which is crazy to think about. We're already at the end of October, about to be November, about to start eating some good Thanksgiving food here in a few weeks. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into my episode. Basically, with the trade deadline being tomorrow, I'm going to dive into these trade rumors. I'm going to touch upon them. Not going to really go into deep details as far as where I think they could go. As I'm recording this episode or as you're listening to this episode, either some trades might have been made or it might have been announced. It's something to monitor over these next couple days. I'm honestly, to be honest, I'm pretty surprised that I didn't wake up to any trade news because it sounds like it does kind of seem like a lot of deals are kind of already tentatively done. They were just waiting for all the games to get over with. But maybe they are waiting for tonight's game. Because speaking of tonight's game, Kenyon Drake, the running back for the Miami Dolphins, who I announced last week that he's in trade discussions, he didn't travel with the team. And he's 100% healthy. And, okay, there we go. Rob, my boy, literally, as I'm talking, just announced a trade for me. This is per Shefty. Wow, this is kind of really cool. Thank you, Rob. As I'm talking about him, Kenyon Drake has been traded to the Arizona Cardinals. It looks like it's going to be for a conditional 2020 draft pick. I would assume it's probably a 5th to 7th round draft pick, and depending on like snaps or games played, maybe it can be moved up to a higher round. I would assume there will be more details to come about that. I'm sure by the time you're listening to this, we'll know what exact round that is. I'll just go ahead and dive into it then, I guess. It makes sense for Miami to get rid of him. They're ready to go on. Mark Walton's been playing more. Kalen Ballage has been playing more than Drake. It just seems like they just want to accumulate as many draft assets as they want. It makes sense why Drake is going out to Arizona. David Johnson's dealing with it sounds like it might be a serious ankle injury. He was out yesterday. He's going to miss the Thursday game. And who knows how much time he'll leave. Chase Edmonds did get hurt yesterday. I don't know how severe that injury is. So their running back depth has taken a big hit. So it actually does make sense for Kenyon Drake to go out there to Arizona. And I do want to thank Rob for helping me get that, because like I already said, as I'm going through this stuff could become irrelevant, guys. So I'm actually going to go through yesterday's news and rumors that came out with trades. I'm just going to go over them. Like I said, I'm not going to touch upon where they come from, because as I do this episode, Rob might help me out and put any trade news that might come out as I'm recording. Now, these are the rumors that came from Shefty yesterday. He said the 49ers have gotten inquiries on backup CJ Beathard. So we'll see if maybe a team like the Bears or the Bucks make a trade for him. And then he says, despite Falcons tight end Austin Hooper being on the last year of his contract and the team's obviously pressed against the cap, Atlanta is not expected to trade Hooper by the deadline. And kind of like what I touched upon with the whole Quandre Diggs drama and Darius Slay being upset about it. But the Lions have been getting calls about Slay. It says it'll take a lot to get him out there. But if there's a cornerback needy team that wants him, that's something to monitor. And then Ian Rappaport dropped a bunch of nuggets yesterday in one big column as far as the trade deadline to watch. With the Jets, they're open to dealing Leonard Williams, Robbie Anderson, and they would like to trade Tremaine Johnson. On the Denver front, Chris Harris seems like the most likely to go, but they're listening to offers. They're not shopping him like they did Emmanuel Sanders. And he said one caveat is he may re-sign with the Broncos in the offseason. So trading him now wouldn't make any sense if that's the plan. And Bengals are doing Bengals things. They have told anyone who listened that they don't plan on doing any deals, which makes no sense. He also mentioned that expect teams to call the Chargers about Melvin Gordon. The price has been high, and LA will hold out for one, but the topic will be revisited. The Seahawks have been receiving calls from running back needy teams about a potential deal for their former first-round pick and Rashad Penny. So watch that. Veteran defensive backs with big contracts such as T.J. Carey of the Browns, Rashad Jones of the Dolphins, and Josh Norman of the Redskins, and Janoris Jenkins of the Giants are names to watch over this next 24 to 48 hours. And then the Lions have made calls to upgrade their roster with specific focus on the running back position. And then the Raiders and Chiefs they got plenty of running back depth. And if anybody wants some depth, he mentioned that KC could be a potential trade partner. They might look to move Damian Williams. And then for Oakland, they might look to move DeAndre Washington or Jalen Richard. Now, this one was kind of interesting to find. When I was actually sitting there watching the NFL Fox pregame show yesterday, Jay Glazer came out and said, though he's not on the trade block, the Texans are getting calls about DeAndre Hopkins, and they'll call about him again and try to swing for the fences, and it would take an awful lot to land him. I don't see that happening at all because basically the Texans are all in on trying to win while Deshaun Watson's on a rookie contract, so it makes absolute no sense from the trade Hopkins. And even if they do for a big haul of picks, I really doubt that. That would make no sense at all. And then one biggest piece of news that came out yesterday, there were a couple injuries, but obviously the most significant injury I want to touch upon really quick before I dive into further in my episode is J.J. Watt's season is done. He tore his pectoral yesterday. That just sucks because 3 out of the last 4 years his season has ended on a season-ending type of injury. He's one of my favorite players in the league, despite him playing for a rival from my Colts. Loved him at Wisconsin, loved him as a pro. He's an amazing guy off the field, has done so much for the Houston community. You just hate to see this happen to a player like that. And then we'll see him bounce back for the Texans next year. I actually looked into the contract yesterday because, once a player starts kind of getting on an injury history, you kind of wonder what the team's thinking about that. I don't think they would ever move on from J.J. Watt because he means so much to the Houston community, but they're only paying him around $15 to $16 million over the next 2 years. So they're getting him at an extreme discount. So it's not like they have to restructure the contract or anything like that. Even though he has zero dead money, I think he'll still be part of the team over the next 2 years. I'm going to go ahead and preview tonight's game. It'll be a quick preview because it involves the Dolphins. Miami is traveling out to Pittsburgh. As far as the injury report for this one, on the Dolphins front, Rashad Jones and Daniel Kilgore are out. Xavier Howard, Chris Lamons, Avery Moss, and Nick Needham are all questionable for the night. And then on the Steelers front, Mark Barron, Jalen Samuels, and Ulysses Gilbert are all questionable. As far as how I think this game's going to go, Steelers are at home. Dolphins are trying to tank. We just saw them trade Kenyon Drake to the Cardinals. So I think the Steelers handle their business. I believe Vegas has them at 14-point favorites or something like that. I think they're going to just run the ball with James Conner. I think this is a perfect game. They can get Juju back involved as well, try to get his confidence back up, get him some production going his way. I think the Steelers handle their business. It won't be the prettiest game, I don't think, because the Steelers really don't excite me as far as their offense, but their defense is pretty solid. They should be able to get in Fitzpatrick's face, make him force mistakes, make him force turnovers, and I think the Steelers walk away with a win. It might be a boring one, so if anybody has anything else to work on tonight like I do, this is the perfect game to do so you're not really tied into what's going on the Monday night matchup. But yeah, I think the Steelers went by at least 10 plus points tonight. And like I mentioned, today's show is going to be a little different. I'm going to dive into my midseason awards, or at least I won't say awards, more like who's the leader in the running for it, in my opinion. And then I will look at the playoff picture for each conference, and then I'll look at the standings for each division, just like I did 4 weeks ago, and just give people my personal opinion on where I think the teams stand as we head into the second half of the NFL season. Starting with the awards, my MVP, I still think it's Russell Wilson. He's got 2,127 passing yards. He's got 17 passing touchdowns, but he also has 3 touchdowns on the ground. He only has 1 interception on the year, and he's got 3 fourth-quarter comebacks and 3 game-winning drives. So he's the biggest reason why Seattle's winning right now. Now, I do understand it might be difficult when it gets towards the end of the season for him to win this award. If for any reason the Seahawks fall out of playoff contention because the NFC playoff race is so tight right now, or somebody else steps up and they win the division and they get a first round bye, maybe like one of the guys in the running, maybe like an Aaron Rodgers, because I think the voters do take that in consideration with the MVP award, not only your performance, but also your how well your team is doing. Guys, I think that should be considered in the running. Aaron Rodgers, like I mentioned, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey, and then Dalvin Cook. Obviously, the running backs are going to be really hard to win. That's going to be based on if they can continue their success and if they can help push their team to the playoffs. And as far as the offensive player of the year, I am going ahead and put Christian McCaffrey as a leader in that. He's got 735 rushing yards, 8 touchdowns on the ground, and then he also has 343 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns through the air. He's been one of the biggest key components for the Panthers, why they have a record of 4-3 right now. Without him, they probably have been disastrous since Cam Newton left with that injury. And look at yesterday. Like, every other part of the Panthers looked bad yesterday against the 49ers, but the one bright spot was Christian McCaffrey. He still went over 100 yards and got a touchdown against that very stout 49ers defense. So he's playing out of his mind this year. So I think he's the clear-cut runner for the Offensive Player of the Year. But I will say this, guys like Dalvin Cook are right there with him. Lamar Jackson is right there with him. And quietly, Michael Thomas is right there with him. I believe Field Yates put it out there this morning that right now he's on pace to smash the reception record for a season. So if you go look at his numbers, he's having a phenomenal year. And nobody's really talking about that. Because when you look at the Saints, they got a great record and stuff. I was trying to figure out, like, who's the MVP? There should be somebody that's in this conversation. And once I did my research for the script, I realized that Michael Thomas should be talked about more in the Offensive Player of the Year conversation. Now, as far as Defensive Player of the Year, I don't have a clear-cut leader. I just don't. There's no, like, linebacker that's having a crazy year with, like, tackles, kind of like Darius Leonard last year. Shaq Barrett was my first winner, but he at the beginning of it 4 weeks ago, he still technically is tied with Myles Garrett with the total amount of sacks on the year. They each got 10. But both their teams are having a rough year, so it's hard for me to say that they'll be a Defensive Player of the Year. Now, I understand maybe when a guy's having a great year, you probably shouldn't consider the team record, but you just got to try to put your mind in the get a mindset of how these voters typically think when they vote for these type of things. If you look at the stats, Chandler Jones is up there. He should be in consideration, in my opinion. One guy I think who has a good team success right now, who should be up there in consideration that nobody talks about, is Vikings DN Danielle Hunter. He's having an outstanding year, one of the biggest key components to that great Viking defense. And a guy I'm going to talk about as a Defensive Rookie of the Year, who I think should be in consideration for Defensive Player of the Year, is Nick Bosa as well. So I feel like there's a wide variety. Maybe you could go pluck maybe like a Stephon Gilmore from the Patriots as well. He's having a pretty good year for a very stout defense. So I just don't think there's a clear-cut leader for the Defensive Player of the Year. I think this second half will really have we'll see if somebody can stand out and go win that award. And then as far as Offensive Rookie of the Year, my clear-cut leader right now is Josh Jacobs. He's got 620 rushing yards. That places him 6th, so he's in the top 10 in that category on the year. And he's got 4 touchdowns. He's got 102 receptions. He's the biggest. Probably, you could argue right now, he's outside probably their offensive line. The best player on the offensive side of the ball for the Raiders right now. He's helped them win games. He almost gave them a chance to beat the Texans yesterday. I like what he's doing. And I have him as a clear-cut leader because, yeah, I guess Gardner Minshew's winning. I just don't know how that situation is going to play out when Foles gets back. I think he does keep the job, but if he does go to the bench, that just totally hurts his chances at winning the award. So yeah, in the running, Gardner Minshew's there. So I think he's like kind of right there with Jacobs, but I'll put Jacobs over him just because I don't know. I feel like Jacobs will continue to have his success throughout the year. I'm not sure about Minshew. I don't know where he stands as far as being the starter. Kyler Murray should definitely be in there as well as far as stats and everything. He's had a good, solid year. He's actually ahead of Gardner Minshew as far as passing yards, but he's behind him on touchdowns. I think he has one more interception than Minshew, if I remember correctly. And one last offensive rookie that should be in consideration is Terry McLaurin. He's having an outstanding year at the wide receiver position, but with how bad that Redskins team is, it seems like he's due for a regression. So we'll see if he can be in a conversation by the time that we get to the end of the year. Like I already talked about, Nick Bosa right now is my defensive rookie of the year. He's got 7 sacks. He's got 1 interception, 20 tackles, 11 tackles for a loss, 13 quarterback hits. And then according to Next Gen Stats, he leads all rookies in quarterback disruptions. He's got 36 total on the year. Now, guys in the running are like Josh Allen. Josh Allen for the Jaguars also has 7 sacks. And then Devin Bush for the Steelers. He's been an outstanding playmaker. So I think these guys are basically going to be the 3 in the running. And depending on how the rest of the year, I think those 3 will probably be the heavily debated players who will be the defensive rookie of the year. And then my head coach of the year, as right now, Sean Payton, man. I mean, they're 6-1. They won without Teddy. They won without Drew Brees with Teddy in place. They won a couple games without Alvin Kamara. They went on the road and smashed the Bears, remember, without Brees, Kamara, and Jared Cook. He continues to be innovative with his way how to use Taysom Hill. Yesterday, even though I was one of the guys that said maybe let's wait on Drew Brees, he didn't hesitate to immediately place a Hall of Fame quarterback in the lineup, and that team did not miss a beat. That was one thing I had worries is what if they kind of get off their flow of how they've been, but they didn't miss a beat. Brees went in there, looked like Brees, and they found a way to win. And with all those extra things outside, that's the reason why I have him as the coach of the year, because he has done so much with how much adversity he's had to face this year. Now, coaches I do think that should be considered in the running, Frank Reich, for how the Colts have played after the Andrew Luck retirement. Kyle Shanahan, of course, he's got his team on an undefeated record. You have to recognize that. Sean McDermott for the Bills are 5-2, sitting right there in the playoff picture as of right now. So he should be in consideration, even though those Bills do need some improvement on the offensive side of the ball if they want to make that final push for the playoffs. And then Matt LaFleur, I got to give that guy credit. A lot of guys, including myself, doubted that it was going to work in Green Bay. We doubted that him and Rodgers will get along. And as we progress to the season, Rodgers is looking better and better. And it looks like that relationship is going to work out. Time will tell on that, but he's got his team at 7-1, I believe, and they're sitting right now on top of the NFC North with a chance to try to compete for a first round bye. Even though that NFC playoff picture is really going to come down, I feel like, for the last few weeks. So hopefully, teams got the schedule in their favor when it comes to that. And then the last award, guys, comeback player of the year. I think you can honestly lock this one up for him. Cooper Kupp, coming off that torn ACL from last year, 58 receptions, 792 yards, and 5 touchdowns on the year. He looks like he didn't even tear his ACL. He looks like the old Cooper Kupp that we saw in the first 2 seasons of his NFL career. Like what you got to be seeing from him, and he is really what makes that offense flow. Yes, they got Todd Gurley, and he's still great. Jared Goff and all that, but when Cooper Kupp is going in games, that's when usually the Rams are going to win. I really don't even have it in the running for the comeback player. I put Jimmy G with a question mark. Just because, the 49ers are having success. They are winning games, but I know it's the same old thing with me and the Niners, but Jimmy G still hasn't looked great. I mean, even in a dominating effort, he made some questionable decisions yesterday. So I put him there just because, they are winning, and maybe he has a huge second half and puts up some numbers and makes a push for the award. But I think it's locked up in Cooper Kupp's favor right now. Now, the next part of the episode, guys, I am going to go through each conference, and then I'm going to look at the playoff picture where things stand right now at the halfway point, and then look at the divisions. And while I'll go through each division, I am going to give my feel on each team. And I'm going to start with the AFC. This is the current AFC playoff picture. Obviously, the Patriots are sitting at the number 1 seed. Colts are currently at the number 2 seed. So if the season were to end today, the Patriots and Colts would have a first-round bye. The Ravens are sitting at the 3rd seed. Chiefs are sitting at the 4th seed. The Bills are sitting at the 5th seed, and the Texans are sitting at the 6th seed. So if the season ended, Patriots, Colts, first-round bye. Ravens and Texans would face in the wild card, and the Chiefs and the Bills would face in the wild card. Now, in the hunt, now when I do the teams that are in the hunt for this episode, I only counted teams that have a record of at least 500 or better. Now, obviously, if a team's below 500, they can go on a run and get right back in the playoffs. I'm not going to doubt that, but once we get to this season, it's really important that you have a record at least 500 or better to give yourself a best chance. So that's why I'm not going to waste time mentioning that. So go ahead and get into this. In the hunt teams, Jaguars and Titans. So those teams got a chance to not only make a push for the wild card, but they are still within a couple games of winning, getting right back into the AFC South. So speaking of the AFC South, I'm going to go ahead and dive right into my divisions. The AFC South, if you guys remember 4 weeks ago, they were the only team that had all 4 teams with a record of 500 or better. And then we're right back at that point at the week 8 part of the year. Colts are currently sitting at a record of 5-2, sitting on top of the AFC South. You really got to like what the Colts are doing. Jacoby is growing every week. They got T.Y. back as healthy, and they were able to win games without T.Y. Darius Leonard's back. Malik Hooker's back. They're getting healthier, and they're sitting at a 5-2 record. Favorable schedule going forward. Honestly, I think after the J.J. Watt injury, I think they should be considered the favorites to win the division. Of course, every game matters. I like where the Colts are going for this, and they got themselves in a great position after a first half rough schedule to make a push and get that and to try to lock up a first round bye. So their defense is playing good. The offense is coming along. And they're just a very solid team, like I thought they would be. And they're not going to be an easy out. And now they got a position to put themselves in the playoffs. Now, Texans, they're sitting at a 5-3 record. I think that J.J. Watt injury is huge. So, I mean, with Deshaun Watson, I think they can win any game. Like we saw yesterday, he put that team on the back and he led them to a victory over the Raiders when the Raiders probably should have won that game. And with him, sorry, I was losing my voice here. With him, I don't think the Texans are necessarily out of the playoffs or they're going to fall apart. But I think with the injury to J.J. Watt, that defense was already suspect in their pass defense, right? And, I mean, we saw, the Raiders make some big plays through the air yesterday. So without J.J. Watt being able to get consistent pressure to the quarterback, I think the Texans might be set to have a rough second half. And then it's going to be really difficult for them to win the games. We'll see if Laremy Tunsil, I know he kind of got banged up yesterday, and if that offensive line starts getting banged up again, and then we saw, Deshaun kind of get banged up with that kick to the eye or whatever that happened to him right before that touchdown throw he did. I don't know, man. I kind of got a bad feeling about the second half for the Texans, but we'll see. I would not be surprised if they remain at the wild card spot or even make a push for the AFC South division. Jaguars, they're sitting at a 4-4 record. They're quietly too. It kind of doesn't seem like they should be 4-4. Gardner Minshew has obviously been a pleasant surprise. I definitely think they could be in competition to go get into the wild card because, like I said, with the injury to J.J. Watt, I think that opens up that second wild card spot for about anybody, not only in the AFC South, but anybody in the AFC. If any of the other teams below 500 want to make a second half run, the Jaguars are a team to me that they can beat they should be able to beat the bad teams like they have, but they're going to struggle against the pretty good teams, which they have had. I'm very interested in seeing how this Gardner Minshew, Nick Foles thing plays out. I know he is supposed to return after their bye week. The Jaguars are on the road, or they're in London this week against the Texans. So I'm not sure. I think this game really depends on how Gardner Minshew plays in this game. I'm not sure if they're going to let him hold the reins until he falls apart and then they put Foles in. Not saying he will fall apart, to see if he does, and then if he does put Foles in, that's going to be something to monitor. I still don't think they're a playoff team, though, even with Foles or with Minshew. I think they're a team that can climb to they can get to 8-8, but I think they're more of a 6-10, 7-9 type team. With the Titans, they're winning now with Ryan Tannehill. Technically, they're 2-0, even though, in my opinion, they probably should have lost that game if the refs didn't blow the whistle on that fumble recovery for a touchdown. But they did win at the end of the day. They're 4-4. I still don't. I really like their defense, but I still have doubts that they'll be able to continue to win games. With Ryan Tannehill at the quarterback position, I think they are like the Jaguars, where they will beat bad teams to mediocre teams to middling teams they can beat. But when they go against some really great teams, maybe teams that can get into a shootout, put up a lot of points, I think that's when they'll struggle. So just like the Jaguars, they could finish up to 8-8, but I see them more of as a 7-9, 6-10, maybe even a 5-11 team. This division is going to be very interesting to watch, but if I had to pick right now, I think the Colts end up winning the division. As far as the AFC East, looks like the Patriots are going to continue to walk away with the division. They're sitting at first place at 8-0. Really don't see much changing for them, even though their offense, I think, is very limited right now. They kind of look questionable, but with how that defense is playing, you got to give it up for them. They're probably going to not only win the AFC East, but they're probably going to get the number 1 seed and lock up home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Bills are sitting at a 5-2 record. They really took advantage of their schedule at the beginning of the season, but they still have a lot to work with on their offense. Josh Allen still needs to show more growth as a quarterback. He's got to stop making these turnovers, because if you continue to turn the ball over, you're going to cause your team to lose more games, and you cannot afford those type of mistakes if you guys do make it to the playoffs. So they do need to work on that type of stuff as they progress through the season. But they also, just like the Patriots, got a pretty relatively easy schedule. So if they can win the games against the bad teams like they've had, and if they can start finding ways to win against the good teams, they should be able to lock up the wild card like I expected. I still think they're a playoff team. They just got a lot to work on that offense. They got some pieces, but they just got to make it all gel and make it all work right. Jets sitting at 1-6. Their season's done. Adam Gase might be a one and done coach. I don't even know if I expect him to survive after this season with how bad the team is. Sam Darnold, after coming out against the Cowboys and lighting up, it seems like he's regressing fast. I'm not even going to buy into the ghost comment. That's just a player self-evaluating himself on the game that just happened to get picked up by mics. But if that's going to haunt him, that sucks for him. And it just seems like they might want to get Adam Gase out of there before he ruins Sam Darnold's career. The Dolphins, 0-6. They're tanking. There's not much for me to touch upon. They haven't shown no improvement at all. Yes, they played the Bills tough last week, but that was a divisional matchup. They're right now battling with the Bengals to see who's going to have the number 1 pick in the next year's draft. As far as this division, I think the Patriots do win the AFC East, and like I mentioned, I think the Bills still find a way to lock up the wild card, and just because the AFC is so weak right now, as you saw when I discussed the playoff picture. It kind of seems like, honestly, the playoff picture is pretty set for the top 5 teams. Like I said, that J.J. Watt injury does scare me, so I feel like that 6th spot in the AFC could be wide open for the taking in the wild card. Moving on to the divisions, AFC North, the Ravens are sitting clear cut as a favorite of the AFC North. They're sitting at a 5-2 record. Steelers are currently 2-4. They got that matchup tonight. If they win as expected, they'll go to 3-4. And regardless if they lose, I think they'll still could be considered as the second part of the North, or second seed in the North, but that really doesn't mean much. Browns are sitting at a 2-5 record, and the Bengals are sitting at a 0-8 record. Ravens, though, just touch upon the teams really quick. They're a team that's pretty good. Lamar Jackson showed some great things this year. I'm still trying to figure them out. I think they're a pretty good team that can beat some really good teams. Then I also see they're a team that could all easily just fall flat on their face, kind of like they did against the Browns a few weeks ago. So I'm not sure where I gauge them, but I do think they're a threat to win the AFC. They got a different style of play. Lamar Jackson's having the best year out of the 2018 quarterback class. So I got to give credit where credit's due. I think the North is their division. I mean, barring them coming out of the bye week next week, I know they got the Patriots on Sunday night, but barring them falling flat on their face for the whole second part of their schedule, they should win the AFC North. Steelers, they're just going to be a team that's under Mike Tomlin. They're probably going to compete in most games. They should be able to beat the bad teams like tonight against the Dolphins. But I just think once you get a bunch of injuries start piling up, like to Roethlisberger, Stephon Tuitt, guys like that, eventually will catch up to you. And I just don't know if Mason Rudolph is the guy after Roethlisberger, and I don't know if they have enough firepower on that offense to win enough games. But I wouldn't be surprised if they still finish second in the North because of how the third team, the Browns are sitting 2-5. It seems like Freddie Kitchens is in over his head right now. He's just like Adam Gase. It seems like he's probably a one-and-done coach. He makes so many questionable decisions as a head coach in the game. It seems like it probably was a bad idea to move up a guy that was a running back coach at this time of last year to a head coach position this year. So it seems like if Dorsey's made some bad mistakes as a GM, it's been his offensive line decisions and his first hiring of his head coach decision. And I said this to some friends last night because Dorsey is connected to him. I would not be surprised if by this offseason, Mike McCarthy is the head coach of the Browns if the Falcons don't go grab him. So I think Mike McCarthy, I guess I'm going to go ahead and say it. I guess my hot take right now is Mike McCarthy will be the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons or Cleveland Browns in 2020. And then the Bengals, they're 0-8. You know where I stand on them. They're a really bad team that I think they should try to get some draft capital for the future to trade away some veteran players and try to rebuild this thing. And I could see them maybe winning 1 or 2 games this year, just like the Dolphins. They're tanking without tanking, quote unquote. And then the last division in the AFC West, the Chiefs sitting on the top of the AFC West at a 5-3 record. The Raiders are sitting there at 3-4. Chargers are sitting there at 3-5, and the Broncos are sitting there at 2-6. Chiefs, I think, are they're obviously the clear-cut better team in the AFC West. But like, if any of the AFC West teams have like something going for them right now, like. This is no slight against the Chiefs as a team, but with the Patrick Mahomes injury, with the Chris Jones injury, with the Frank Clark injury, and Kendall Fuller, that team is really banged up. Their offensive line is really banged up, and that division is there for the taking. But the Raiders and Chargers and Broncos have nothing going for them right now, so it just seems like once Mahomes comes back here, I know the report yesterday is likely to come back not this week, but more likely next week against the Titans. So once he comes back, it just seems like the Chiefs are just going to walk away with the division. I really don't see anybody coming up and taking that from them. As far as the Raiders, they're still a team. They're sitting there at 3-4. They're a team I'll give John Gruden. John Gruden's coaching the hell out of this roster right now. He's doing a great job. People got to give him credit for that. But they just have too many holes. Not too many holes. They just got like these large holes on that. If they were to fill those large holes, they could be a very competitive, good team. Still think they're a year or two away and from competing to be in the playoffs. But they're going to be a team like they're going to be like they can be 8-8. Maybe they can go to 9. I can see them being 9-7. I would have to take a look at their second half schedule to say 9-7, but I think they'll probably end up being anywhere between like a 5-11 to maybe. I think their ceiling could be a 9-7 team, just because of how bad the AFC is right now and their division too, outside the Chiefs. And the Chargers, they won a close one yesterday. They're sitting at a 3-5 record. The Chargers, to me, it's just their injuries. Their injuries have decimated this team. It's just they found a way to win finally. Seems like usually like they would lose those type of games. And who knows? I mean, if there's a team I had to pick that is below 500 in the AFC that could go on a hot streak and sneak in as that 6th wild card spot, I still think the Chargers. Is that something I want to jump on? No, but that could be a team if they can. I'm not sure. I think Derwin James can come back soon, and Melvin Ingram gets back soon, and they start getting some key pieces back in that lineup. Maybe I would have to, like I said, I would have to take a look at their schedule. But I said maybe. We'll see. Broncos 2-6. That team's going to finish last in the division. I have no hope for them. Joe Flacco is calling out the coaching staff yesterday. That team seems like it's about to blow up from the inside. I'm not saying it's Fangio's part because their defense is playing phenomenal right now. If you look at their DVOA and their stats, outside yesterday, it was like the previous 4 weeks, they were holding teams to less than 300 yards per game. So their defense is good. And their offense, even when they had Sanders, they had the right pieces. Obviously, Flacco's not the answer. Drew Lock, I think, will be off IR in roughly about 2 weeks, I want to say. So I don't really think Drew Lock has what it takes to be a quarterback position. There are reports out there that the Broncos coaching staff actually still believes he's not ready to step in as an NFL quarterback. So I don't know where this team's going. I think they're destined to finish last in the division. They'll probably be picking in the top 10 next year. So I'm going to jump into the NFC. And the NFC is the clear-cut veteran conference in the NFL right now. It's going to come down to, like I said earlier in this episode, the last 3 weeks to win this, to figure out who's going to be in the playoffs in the NFC. Looking at the current NFC playoff picture, the 49ers are sitting at the 1 seed. The Saints are sitting at the number 2 seed. So if the season were to finish right now, they would be the teams with the first-round byes. Packers are sitting at the 3rd seed. Cowboys are sitting right now at the 4th seed. Seahawks are currently sitting at the 5th seed, and the Vikings are sitting at the 6th seed. So 49ers Saints got a first-round bye. If the season were to end right now, the Packers and Vikings would face off in the wild card, and the Cowboys and Seahawks would face off in the wild card. Now, teams in the hunt, there's 4 teams with a record of 500 or better. The Rams are sitting right outside of the playoff picture, as well as the Panthers, the Eagles, and the Lions. So this is going to be something to monitor. You're talking about 10 different teams with a record of 500 or better in the NFC. So it's gonna come down to that in December month. So I would have to have the schedules up in front of me to try to make a proper prediction on who ends up making it in there. But it's going to be interesting to see where this playoff picture stands when I do my update after week 12 here in 4 weeks. And I'm gonna go ahead and dive in my division by division, just like the AFC. With the NFC South, the Saints are sitting on top, 6-1. Panthers are sitting there at 4-3 in the second in division. Bucks 2-5, third in division. The Falcons are sitting at the bottom of the barrel with a 1-7 record in that division. Saints are the clear-cut better team. Barring utter collapse, they're going to walk away with the NFC South. I don't see how they don't win this division. The Panthers are sitting at a 4-3 record. They kind of got exposed yesterday by the 49ers. I still think they got what it takes to get in there as a wild card team. I'm not sure. I still think Kyle Allen, he makes some good throws, but I still don't know if he's necessarily the answer. The report came out this morning that Cam Newton is actually technically still rehabbing, so the expectation is Kyle Allen will actually start this week. So Kyle Allen still has a chance to maybe keep Cam Newton on the bench when he returns, but I still think it's Cam Newton's job when he comes back. I'm not saying Cam Newton would have made a difference in yesterday's game, but when you play a team like the 49ers, if 100% healthy Cam Newton's there, I think the game's a lot closer than what it was. And then with the Bucks, they're sitting at a 2-5 record. Jameis had some mistakes. I know Bruce Arians came out yesterday and said it wasn't Jameis's fault. It was the wide receiver's fault. And he keeps on trying to save face for Jameis. But, I mean, at some point, you got to put together a game, a couple games in a row where you're not making those type of mistakes where you're throwing interceptions and whatnot. But they're a team that underneath Bruce Arians, they're going to compete. They can maybe upset some teams here and there, but they're probably going to end up with a 5-11, 6-10 type record. Falcons 1-7. They are what they are. Dan Quinn's going to get fired at some point. I know Arthur Blank keeps on trying to extend his period of coaching. I think he did bring them to a Super Bowl, so I mean I think he'll be there at least towards the end of the season. Maybe the last couple weeks he gets fired, but I still think DQ ends up surviving at least to the end of the season, and then they move on. I know Ben Albright basically said out there is like, I know most people expect it, but there's no way Dan Quinn comes back next year. And like I said, which is why I think Mike McCarthy will end up being a head coach of either the Falcons or the Browns next year. And then moving on to the NFC East, the Cowboys are currently sitting on top with a 4-3 record. The Eagles are right there next to them at a 4-4 record, and then the bottom teams, the Giants are third in the division with a 2-6 record, and the Redskins are sitting there at a 1-7 record. As far as this division, I still think it comes down to the Cowboys and Eagles. I still think the Eagles has what it takes. It's hard for me to predict. Because part of me says, Jason Garrett's going to be Jason Garrett. He's going to fall apart, and the Eagles are going to go on a roll, and the Eagles are going to find a way to win the division. But part of me also says the Cowboys can play like the Cowboys did against the Eagles. They're going to walk away with this division and make it difficult for the Eagles to squeeze in because they have that one win over them. And obviously, they will have a rematch later in the season. So I think but I do think this will come down to the wire. It'll be interesting to say. I can't stand on any team right now between the Cowboys and Eagles. I still believe the Eagles have what it takes. They still have the roster. They should be getting guys returning from injury soon, like Deshaun Jackson. I think Tim Jernigan's almost back from his injury as well. So we'll see. They're supposed to be a team that's supposed to be heavy in the trade market. So maybe if they go get a Chris Harris from the Broncos, maybe if they go get a Darius Slay from the Lions, that can help their defense out. So that's something to monitor. This trade deadline could totally change a whole team's future for the rest of the season, as we saw last year when the Cowboys got Amari Cooper. That totally changed their season around. So we'll see what happens with each of those teams. I do think each team maybe finishes with at least the Cowboys and Eagles are teams I could see anywhere between a 7-9 record all the way up to like a 10-6 record. And depending on where they finish, that will determine who wins the division. I really don't see either team making it as a wild card with how great the NFC North teams are and the NFC West teams. As far as the Giants, they're sitting there 2-6. Daniel Jones, he had some mistakes yesterday, but he also has them looking pretty good. He's going to have a rookie year, so they're going to be a team that can win against bad teams. They're going to lose against bad teams. They're going to be a team that finishes like 4-12, 5-11. Redskins stink, guys. I'm not going to touch upon them much. They're sitting at 1-7. They're probably going to be a top 5 pick, if not at least a top 10 pick this year. There's nothing really I have nothing positive to say about the Redskins right now. I'm sorry, Washington fans. I'm going to go ahead and dive into the NFC North. The Packers are sitting there at a 7-1 on top of the division, but the Vikings are breathing down their necks at a 6-2 record. Lions, like I said, they're in the hunt right now. They're currently sitting at a 3-1 record, and the Bears are sitting at a 3-4 record. As far as who wins the division, it's hard because as much as I want to say the Vikings, the Packers are legit. Aaron Rodgers playing great. That defense, they have pass rushers. They can get after the quarterback. They got guys in the secondary that can make plays. I still think they're definitely beatable, and I could definitely see them being the wild card team out of this division. But as far as the Vikings, they're sitting there at a 6-2 record. Defense is really great at home. They need to figure it out on the road. Kirk Cousins has been absolutely lights out. Dalvin Cook, like I said, should be an MVP conversation. Stephon Diggs is playing great. They'll get Adam Thielen back from his injury either this week or next week. Obviously, I'll have an update on the Friday episode for you guys. So I think these two teams, the Packers and the Vikings, are going to be one of the two teams that win this division, and it's probably going to come back to their matchup later on in the season. Obviously, how the teams handle their outside schedule, outside their game. later on in the seaon. If I had to pick right now, I think with the Vikings, they're going to be at home when they face the Packers again. I think the Vikings win this division. I think the Packers might drop some games. We saw last night, even against a Matt Moore team, they're kind of suspect, right? So, I mean, they're really good, but they, like I said, they kind of are beatable too. So it's hard for me to say. I mean, I think both teams can easily win this division. I can see both teams going to a 11-5, 10-6 record to win the division. We'll see. It's going to be very interesting to watch how the North plays out. Lions are sitting 3-3-1. They're definitely a competitive team. They're a team where maybe they can acquire a couple more playmakers. I think losing Kerryon Johnson really hurts their chances to make the NFC wild card with how tough it is. I think they're going to be a team that finishes. That tie kind of throws up what I was about to say, but because I was about to say like a 7-9 type team, 8-8. So I guess maybe like what would it be? 7-8-1, 8-7-1 type team. That's how I view them right now. But also, if they trade Darius Slay and that makes the locker room even more upset, they could completely fall apart and have a bad record too. With the Bears, 3-4, all those playoff hopes, I guess I want to go ahead and say it. Kiss it goodbye. It's over. Mitchell Trubisky is totally regressed in the way that you do not want him to regress. You can argue Matt Nagy has regressed as a coach in a way that you have not want him to regress in his second year. That defense is broken right now. I think they have just given up. Not given up, but they're just kind of like, how are you going to give up this effort when that offense can't figure things out? So I just don't know where this Bears team to go because, like, I still think they got what it takes on defense to win. But like I said, I think that defense is just kind of exhausted with how their offense is playing. I have no high expectations for the Bears in the second half of their schedule. I still think they'll probably beat pretty bad teams. They're going to struggle with mediocre to good teams, and then they're probably going to get their butts beat by great teams. So they're going to be a team that finishes like, I can give them 3 more wins, I guess. I haven't looked at their schedule, 6-10, 5-11. Honestly, I can see them finishing 4-12 and only win 1 more game for the rest of the year. And then as far as the NFC West, this is a pretty tough division right now. 49ers are sitting out there on top, 7-0. The Seahawks are sitting there 6-2. Rams are 5-3, and the Cardinals are 3-4-1. The 49ers are. I have to give them up. Got to give credit where credit's due. Their defense is legit. Their running game is legit. Yes, I'm going to be the guy that still sits here. Yes, I still have questions about Jimmy G. So I do think the 49ers have what it takes to win this division, but I also could see them dropping a couple games, and I could see the Seahawks win this division. Shoot, I can see the Rams going on a run and winning this division. This is really hard to figure out. I could see any of those teams winning the division, any of those teams winning the wild card. I do think it would be kind of crazy to say the 49ers have a chance to fall out of the playoff picture. But then again, look at the 6th team in the wild card. It's the Vikings with a 6-2 record. All it takes is a 2 or 3 game skid, and you're out of the playoff picture. But I still think the 49ers, I'm not going to sit here. The 49ers are the team to beat in the NFC West right now based on how they're playing as a team. I still think the Seahawks with Russell Wilson playing at MVP type level, I still think they make it into the playoffs. The Rams, I'm still trying to figure out, right? They just came off a 2-game winning streak. I believe they're going into their bye week. Yeah, they are because they just played in London, and that's how the NFL has it set up right now. So we'll see if they can retool over the bye week, get some guys back healthy. Maybe they make a couple trades before the trade deadline because we know Les Snead is not afraid to be aggressive with his trades. So we'll see if they can get more talent on the team. I still think because of Sean McVay, they have what it takes to make a push for the wild card, maybe for the division, like I said. But it's going to be extremely difficult. Like I said, this NFC playoff picture in 4 weeks, when I do my update episode on that, could completely be flipped upside down. The Cardinals, though, 3-4-1. There is going to be a good team that's exciting to watch with Kyler Murray. They're going to be able to beat the bad teams as we saw in their 3-game winning streak. But when they run into pretty good teams like the Saints, they're probably going to have a rough outing. So I think the Cardinals, they're just going to try to build, for the rest of the seaon. And I guess I forgot to mention this too in the trade deadline or trade rumor, but Steve Keim is pretty adamant he's not trading Patrick Peterson. But then again, two guys, he said Josh Rosen was his quarterback, so I don't know what to believe from that guy's mouth. And then Rob did update on me for the Arizona is actually trading a 2026 round pick that could become a 5th round pick. So kind of like what I said earlier. And then he asked, is DJ Moore hurt more than we thought, or is he possibly getting traded? Maybe if they want volume. I don't know why you trade one of your best players. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Well, who knows? If a running back needy team might make them an offer. But I think he's just more hurt than we thought. And I think he's got a pretty serious high ankle sprain that they're not telling us more about. I forgot to put this in my script, but just go ahead and give my Thursday night prediction. Arizona and the Cardinals and the 49ers are facing off this Thursday night. I think the Cardinals, like I mentioned about the Cardinals, they're going to probably lose against great teams. And right now the 49ers are a great team. So I think the 49ers are going to handle business, especially with DJ being hurt. Kenyon Drake on a short week. Can Kenyon Drake learn that offense and be any type of productive against a really stout running back defense? I doubt it. I think the 49ers end up winning on Thursday night by at least 10 plus points or not. I'm sorry, 10 plus points or more. But with the caveat, it's a division game, and it's a Thursday night game, so you never know. Could be a lot closer than what we expect, but I would think the 49ers handle their business. All right. Rob's got my producer question for me today. At the halfway point, which teams are you more surprised about their records, good and bad? And this is the worst ref season so far. All right, let's just answer your first questions, good and bad. Let's just go through the AFC. Good. Any surprises? I know people want to argue the Colts as a surprise, but if anybody's listened to me on the Blitz breakdown after Luck's retirement and on my first episode of Cody Talks NFL, that's not a surprise to me that they're good. Even the Bills, that's not a surprise to me. I predicted them to go to the playoffs. I'll say the Ravens. I didn't think the Ravens were going to have a good year, so I want to say they are a surprise good team. And speaking of that division, the Browns. That's a very surprise bad team. Now, the Browns had a tough schedule, but I expected them to be more competitive than this. They're just straight up getting their butts whooped in games and out-coached and out-manned on both sides of the ball. So Browns are one of the biggest surprise bad teams for me. Let's see here. Going to the NFC. 49ers, I did not expect them – first of all, I did not expect them to be good, let alone this great, let alone undefeated at this point of the season. So that's a big surprise team for me. That's good from the NFC. A bad team, the Falcons. The Falcons they had all the keys on both sides of the ball to get kind of restart this offseason and get back to the playoffs. I thought they'd be more competitive. I thought they would make a bigger push for the playoffs, and they haven't not just been bad, but they have been terrible this year. It's more on the defensive side of the ball. And then just kind of going through it, I think the Packers at a 7-1 record are a surprise to me. I thought they would finish third in the division, and like I kind of touched upon earlier, and when I was going through the awards section, I wasn't the biggest believer in Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur's relationship working out, and that's kind of turning that around. And other than that, yeah. And as far as worst rest season, I think it's pretty bad right now. It's probably. I think if I remember right, they have more flags per game than any other year since 2002. So yeah, it's definitely one of the worst ref games. There have been some questionable calls throughout the year, and I just think it's time for the owners to have a meeting this offseason and realize there's so much technology that you can use with tracking technology, chips, and all that AI. We have 4K cameras. Why don't we get a bunch of cameras? We get all these angles. All of us at home could sit at home looking at the screen and be like, oh, yeah, that's pass interference. Oh, yeah, that's a hold. Within a second, like that. So, I don't understand why we have refs, humans, by the way, they're humans, just like you and I, that could easily have a bad angle on something and from a play, and you might think you saw something, but you didn't because you just had a bad angle. You're just going to throw it because that's what you thought you saw. Now, why don't we just get them off the field, put them all in a booth, have a screen right in front of them with either one to three multiple cameras with different angles on either players, a specific area of the field, and they can make snap judgment calls. And maybe you leave one main rep on the field, right? Or a couple that can make the call that everybody can see, make the announcement or whatever, throw the penalty flag out there. But you just have a bunch of reps in the booth that can just say, yeah, that just happened, right? Whatever, Jim, that was holding on 71, and he just throws a flag out really quick. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be at the 21-yard line. Like, there's so much ways you can make this not only a lot better officiating, but at a better rate. Get it in a timely manner, because sometimes these challenges take forever. Sometimes even the calls take forever. It's just, there's ways you can fix this and speed up the process at the same time. And I just hope the NFL considers that, get the Sky Cam more involved. There's so many ways you can fix that. And maybe I should just put together an article and write the NFL about it. And then other than that, thank you guys for tuning in my Monday episode. I hope you guys have really enjoyed this first half of the season. I have. I can't believe it's flown by. We're a few days away from Halloween. Mind-blowing to me. Weather's going to start getting cooler. I think my friends up in Wisconsin are expecting some snow here in a couple days. That's pretty crazy. I don't have to. I'm in Florida. But, yeah, other than that, thank you guys for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please hit that like button. Please hit the subscribe button. We should be getting more YouTube shows coming in the next few weeks. Also, if you guys don't want to watch this on YouTube, you can always subscribe to the Blitzalytics podcast network. Maybe that's what you're listening to this on. We have other great shows like the Blitz Breakdown. That's our staple show. We have My Fantasy Football Hot Seat, where me and Rob talk about everything fantasy. We got the Pick Six. We have our XFL podcast for those that are interested in the XFL. That just debuted over the weekend, so go listen to that. And then other than that, guys, if you have anything to give during this holiday season, you want to give to charity, please check out the Blitzalytics All Heart Charity League that we put on. We have 10 different teams that represent 10 different charities. It's go.rallyup.com/allheart. You can go there to donate. Like I always say every episode, I don't care who you donate to, but if you can donate, just go to donate to a great cause that maybe appeals to you more. Other than that, guys, I want to thank you for tuning in. I hope you have a great week this week, and Blitz out.
Thank you for watching Cody Talks NFL, presented by Blitzalytics.com. As always, hit that like and subscribe button, and then hit that bell notification icon to stay up to date on all things football.